Hey everyone, and welcome as we continue our study through the New Testament, looking at the New Testament church. And today we are getting close. We are two lessons away from the end of First Corinthians. We're going to look at Paul's final instructions today, and then tomorrow we'll look at Paul's final greetings. But this is going to come from First Corinthians 16, verses 5 through 18. We'll read this one, go through the notes, and then just kind of discuss a little bit as we go. There's not a lot here, and so it's nothing real deep, but there's some little bit of information we'll hit on. So he says, starting in verse 5 of chapter 16, I'm coming to visit you after I have been to Macedonia, for I am planning to travel through Macedonia. Perhaps I will stay a while with you, possibly all winter, and then you can send me on my way to my next destination. This time I don't want to make just a short visit and then go right on. I want to come and stay a while if the Lord will let me. In the meantime, I will be staying here in Ephesus until the festival of Pentecost. There is a wide open door for a great work here, although many oppose me. When Timothy comes, don't intimidate him. He is doing the Lord's work just as I am. Don't let anyone treat him with contempt. Send him on his way with your blessing when he returns to me. I expect him to come with the other believers. Now, about our brother Apollos, I urged him to visit you with the other believers, but he was not willing to go right now. He will see you later when he has the opportunity. Be on guard, stand firm in the faith, be courageous, be strong, and do everything with love. You know that Stephanas and his household were the first of the harvest of believers in Greece, and they are spending their lives in service to God's people. I urge you, dear brothers and sisters, to submit to them and others like them who serve with such devotion. I am very glad that Stephanas, Fortunus, and I believe that it's Achaeus have come here. They have been providing the help you weren't here to give me. They have been a wonderful encouragement to me as they have been to you. You must show your appreciation to all who serve so well. And so just to kind of finalize this and go over this, we see that Paul planned to go to Macedonia, or go through Macedonia to Corinth, right? And this would have been his third missionary journey, and possibly to spend the winter at Corinth. That's what his plans were, anyways. That's what he was wanting to do. He then expected the Corinthians to provide supplies for his journeys when he left them, and that was kind of the idea when he would say, "Take care of them" or send them on their way. That meant like, hey, send them with supplies, send them with the stuff that they need. In the meantime, he intended to stay in Ephesus until May, right, which was the Jewish feast of Pentecost, which he mentioned there, because of the favorable response that he's seeing to the gospel in that city. And so he's like, hey, I'm going to stay here because we are seeing a good response in the city here, and so I'm going to continue to say. And so he gives them instructions on how the Corinthians, our believers, should receive Timothy. Now we know Timothy's young, and we're gonna see where Paul writes about how Timothy should not let anyone look down on his youth. We'll see this later in some of the letters that Paul writes to Timothy. And so I think that's probably the background there is Timothy was young and he was trying to lead these people or help lead these people. And I think maybe there was a little bit of pushback there because of his age. And when he talks about Timothy, you see it in the writing. Some versions I think have if, but the actual Greek basically means is the equivalent to whenever, like not if he's coming, but whenever he comes, right? And so just kind of a little note there on that. But so Paul was certain that Timothy was going to go to Corinth. So we see that. And so when he says send him on his way with in peace, right? That is a way of saying supply him with all the needs for the journey, like I mentioned before. So when they say send him on his way, it's not like, oh hey, yeah, you did a great job. We give him an applause and all that stuff. It's no, send him on his way because he needs, give him what he needs for his journey, support him, give him what he needs. And so we also see he brings up Apollos, right, who had a vital role, we know, in growing the Corinth church, right? And Paul I just already readily acknowledged that, and he acknowledges it's here. But he was most likely, it wasn't like Paul was like, nah, I just don't want to go. More than likely, he was unwilling to go or to come right now because of his gospel duties elsewhere. We know that he was spreading the gospel, he was working, and so more than likely, he just couldn't get away from whatever it was he was doing. We don't know 100% sure, but we don't believe that Apollos, him working hard like he was just like, nah, I don't want to go. And so Paul warns us that we are to be alert, right? We must be alert, and especially among competing traditions of the worldly wisdom, and stand firm in our faith as one body in the faith. And so faith refers here to the content of the gospel, which is Christ's death and resurrection. We need to stand firm in that. And so again, like I've talked about, it doesn't mean, and when we talk about one body and one faith, it doesn't mean that every single believer has to believe the exact same thing, all those same things, and can't believe different things. That would have that's crazy, because that wasn't even the way in the New Testament church. So it's what he's standing for is we need to stand firm in the death and resurrection of Christ, right? Stand firm in that and continue to be that. And then he talks about love, right? And that love confirms our submission to the Lord's authority and to one another. And so we need to make sure that we do that. And so, what we see here, and he talks about the household of Stephanas, more than likely the way that he wrote that, because he talks about being under their authority, this probably implies that some members of that household, were elders, at least elders at Corinth, right? And we see this. So if you want to look this up, you can Google this, but this isn't in the Bible. But there's a writing called First Clement, I think is how you pronounce that, 42.4, right? And it's written in AD. It was written in AD 95, and it mentions the apostles in Corinth, that they appointed the first converts to be bishops and deacons. So more than likely to be elders and deacons that we see there. And so just kind of an interesting fact thing. Again, not 100% proven, but the fact that Paul talks about being under their authority and listening to them, then more than likely that's what we're seeing there, is that they were elders, more than likely. And we understand that there's an authoritativeship a little bit in the eldership, not so much in the deaconship. That's a servant position, and a bishop elder position is a servant position as well. But there is a little bit more spiritual authority there that we see. And so finally, he mentions Stephanas, Fortunus, and then Archias, I believe is how you say their names. They were probably the bearers of the Corinthian letter to Paul, and so that's why he mentions them, and treat them well and do that. And so Paul kind of finishes that up like he does in most of his letters, talks about a few people that are helping in the ministry and how we should treat them, and how we should greet them, and or at least how the Corinth church should greet them and treat them. And so tomorrow we'll look at Paul's final greeting. It's his finishing up of Corinthians 16. And then this week we're going to spend a little bit of time in Acts, and then we're going to head straight into Second Corinthians, and there's a lot of history here, and so it's kind of neat, of everything that happens with the First Corinthians, between First Corinthians and Second Corinthians, and a lot that we see, and it's like some of that stuff that even going through it again this time, there's some things I just didn't pick up on last time, or maybe I just don't remember them from last time. Of you see the certain events that happen that really aren't talked about a lot, and so we'll hit that, like lost letters and that kind of stuff. So it's kind of neat, and so I hope that everyone enjoys this as we continue to go through it. As always, I appreciate everyone who takes the time to watch these and spend time with us and ask questions and share these. If you find these helpful, I ask that you share them, because that's how we get our message out. That's how we help reach other people, help people study the Bible daily. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel, I ask that you do that, so that way you get the notifications when we publish these. You can sign up. There's a link in our in the description where you can sign up for the studies, and you get emails and text messages and stuff like that around it as well. So as always, I appreciate everyone who takes the time to watch these, and I hope y'all have a wonderful day.